Hi, so today I'm going to be going over what our homework is going to be for the week. First off, I just kind of want to remind you of some things that we've done in the past because these skills are going to be used during our homework drawing. So I grabbed two sketchbooks out of the box, just ones that I thought had a pretty good example here. So here, remember our 7-step shading scale. And then we went ahead and together we drew marbles. And so here's the one that we did in class together, and you can see that we were really looking for those highlights, the shadows, the midtones, and the reflected light. So here were 3 samples by one student, and then if we flip the page, the student's large sample is on the back. And what I really want you to notice is that the shadow area, but also paying attention to where the values shift inside of this sphere. The reason that I want you to focus on this is our next assignment. We're going to be drawing marbles again, but now we're going to be adding color to it. And so we're going to be taking everything we learned about value, everything that we learned about color, and combining them together because our next big assignment in this class is going to be a painting assignment. I'm going to show you one other sketchbook really quick just to show you the different approaches. So here's another student's approach. So you can see there's 7-step shading scale. We have 2 spheres here. And then we have another sphere on the next page. So here's another example of how to approach this. All right, so the first thing we're going to be doing is I'm going to go ahead and I have this box, the colored marble box, and this is what we're going to be using in class. And I'm going to go ahead and open up this bad boy, and I'm going to go ahead and pull out the shooter marble just because it's big and it's easy to see for this demo. And if you remember our trick, if we put the marble on a piece of tissue paper, it seems to not really roll away so much, but it also allows us now to see the shadows underneath a little easier than on the black surface of the table. And we can also see the reflected light from above, so the lights that are above here, and then we can also see there's some reflected light down slightly underneath in this cast shadow. All right. So the first step for this one is we're just going to take our sketchbooks, and I've got my tiny sketchbook here today. And what I want you guys to do is to draw your marble about the size of your hands put together. So you can see roughly this is the size you want to draw your marble. Because it's easier to manipulate the oil pastels, the slightly larger we go. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my marble, and I'm really going to look at the shapes inside of my marble. I'm going to really look at the cast shadow. I see there's this really cool blue swirly doodadder in here, so I'm going to kind of go in here and get that blue swirly doodadder drawn in. I see this shadow down in here. I see this highlighted area. I see another shadow slightly on the top here. So I'm going to go ahead and lightly draw in my marble so that I have a blueprint to work from. The next thing we're going to do is I'm going to have these different oil pastel sets sitting out. Now I removed all the black from the oil pastels. The reason for that is black is a color that you really have to be able to control, and it can pollute your drawings very quickly, especially when you're first learning about color. So I want to take the black away, and I want you guys to start thinking about using blues and purples for your shadows. Other colors that are more potent, also think about how you can mix complementary colors to create complementary grays, and using those complementary colors as shadows as well. It'll make your artwork a lot more powerful if you use other colors than just relying on black. So the sets are, different levels of togetherness. Let's pull another set out so we can see here. So essentially the sets look like pretty much like this. So we've got white, and then we also have this color that I've added to, which is called Prussian blue. Prussian blue is a really dark blue. It's great for shadow areas. It's one of my favorite blues to use when I want to create an intense dark without using black. The other thing that's fun too is if you mix Prussian blue and you mix brown together, you can make a really, really dark brown. So that's also another important thing to think about. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start with my lighter blue, my cobalt blue here. And I'm just going to brush in some of this blue into where my stripe is. Now I'm going to try to mix this color as close as I can to the actual marble. You don't really have this, the blue that's in there is more of a cerulean blue, which we don't have in this set, so I'm going to have to get a little creative here in order to get that color. So I know that we need a little bit of green, so I'm going to add a little bit of yellow in here. Up in here. And I'm going to add, where I see some of my darker spots, I'm going to go ahead and add that Prussian blue. Now with oil pastels, you can just continue to color on them like crayons. It's almost like a combination of crayons and lipstick. The thing I like to do is I like to use the side of my pinky finger here, and I use it very carefully as a blender. And I can start blending these colors together. Now you don't want to use a tissue paper to blend, because if you start using a tissue paper, it's actually going to rub the oil pastel all the way off the paper, which is what we don't want. I'm just going to start by getting this in here so I have a base layer. My finger is pretty dirty now. I can take a paper towel that's slightly damp or an apron, and I can just clean my finger off. And I'm going to go about getting some other colors in here now. I'm going to go ahead, I see down here there's a darker value here, but from my angle it almost looks like it has a little bit of brown in it. So I'm just going to very carefully add a little bit of this brown. And then I'm going to take this Prussian blue, and I'm going to go along this area in here, and then I see sort of the same, there's a shadow back in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that as well. And I don't want to get too intense because this is a somewhat transparent object, so I don't want to overpower it, but I do see a little bit of sort of a yellowy green. So I'm just going to put that in here just a tad. And then same thing, and this time when I blend, I'm going to curve with my finger because this is a round object, so I want to blend in a round form. So I'm just going to curve my blending. And I'm going to be adding some white on top of this in just a bit, so it is going to smooth it out a bit more. But I just want to work with getting this almost like a little gradient that's happening here because it's sort of smearing on the paper. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take my white. Now some of the whites, you can see like this one, are pretty grody. You can just take a paper towel and just gently swirl it into the paper towel, and that will actually clean the oil pastel off. So if you need to check that out, because otherwise you're going to actually get some other colors mixing in here, maybe colors you don't want. But this is a good way. You just rub it in the paper towel. Now we've got a clean marble, or a clean oil pastel. And I'm going to start doing my strokes in a circular motion as well. And you can see it's going on very much, to me this reminds me a lot of lipstick. And I'm just going to keep this in here. Now in this area this where it's brighter, I'm just going to go over with the white right away. Then I'm going to go back over the colored areas very lightly. Come over here, I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And there is some lighter areas in this white, in this blue part of this marble, so I'm going to add some white there. And I am going to be blending that in, so I'm just going to get that in there. I'm going to sort of finesse that a little bit more because I'm not completely happy with how that visually looks just yet. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take my finger and I'm just going to do some gentle blending because I like my stuff to look really smooth. That's just kind of my personal preference. You can leave it a little bit more rough if that's what the look visually that you like, so that's your aesthetic. Okay, so I'm going to kind of come through here. Okay, I'm going to blend this a little bit more now. I'm going to blend that in so it actually looks like it's part of this instead of sitting on top. And I'm going to go ahead and come back with my cobalt blue, and I'm going to work on this color a little bit more. Now there are a couple different sets, so you may have one that does have more of this cerulean blue in it, but for now, this is what we got. I kind of see this sort of greeny stripe up in here, so I'm going to do it. Okay. A little darker down in here, so I'm going to go ahead and get my Prussian blue out again for my shadow. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add my shadow down in here. I'm going to be really careful not to just color the whole thing really dark blue, because actually from what I can see, my darkest shadow is right under in here. I have another lighter shadow here, and I have basically a cast reflection right in that area that has like quite a bit of a yellow tone to it, mostly because the lights I'm working under are fluorescent, and so they have more of a warm tone, and so that's what's shining through that marble. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to turn my paper around so I can get my edge a little cleaner. I'm going to actually use this right now to clean up my edge so that this doesn't look as messy. And that's why working bigger will help, because the bigger you work, the more control you have over these thick objects, and so you can sort of work on some blending and some edge control. Okay, so I'm going to come over in here, and then it's kind of this yellow, almost a green, and I think that's because it's reflecting with some of that blue from the interior. I'm just going to add a little bit of that, and then because this is a lighted area, I'm just going to come in with the white a little bit. And I'm just going to blend these edges here. Okay. I'm going to come back on this side, and I'm going to just try to take the edge of this pastel if I can. I'm just going to try to tidy up this edge a little bit because it's driving me bonkers. And I'm not going to go super dark because I don't want it to look like a cartoon or a coloring book where we have these big, thick outlines. Visual weight is great for when you're doing just contour line drawings or something of that nature, but for this I want to really rely on my colors blending together. So I'm going to just now really carefully, now I've got that in, I'm just going to try to drag my finger along the edge to sort of blend it into the white that's already here, make it feel like it's part of this, and just sort of clean that up. Now, oil pastel doesn't really erase, so you can't really come back in here and erase the edges. That's kind of the bad part. It's not the most forgiving in that way. So I'm going to come back in now and add my highlights. So I'm going to just press kind of hard and leave this thicker layer that's on top. I'm going to come in here and add my other highlight. And there's a couple brighter spots in here. I'm just going to add those back in. Now the other thing that is fun with oil pastel, if you get too much on here, which can happen if you get a little oversaturated, you can actually just take stuff and scrape off the oil pastel. I've done that before too. It's actually a fun technique for creating texture. You can definitely work on that. So ideally what I'd like you to do is have a marble that looks like this. So I'm showing you a marble that I would expect from you guys. And I would like you to draw at least 5 marbles in your sketchbook. This is an assignment that you guys will be doing if you finish up anything early, or if you have oil pastels at home, that's great. But if not, this is something that's more of an in-class assignment when you finish your other projects early, so we can start working on learning how to blend color, because we are going to be starting to paint, and that idea of blending different colors and using your cool colors as shadows and your warm colors as highlights is going to be really important as we move forward. Alright, well thank you for watching this video. Please remember that this is an educational video designed for the students of Santa Teresa High School. Thank you very much. Goodbye.